And we're ready, Mr. Chair.
All right, let's get this thing rolling. Let's call this to order. 7:31. Get a roll call.
Miss Anthony?
Present.
Miss Bright?
Present.
Miss Clement, she let me know she was not going to make it today. Mr. Hayes? Oh, you're muted.
I'm present.
Miss Shaw?
Present.
Mr. Stevie?
I am here also. Let's move on to item 2, review and approval of the draft LAR and meeting minutes.
And that was last week's, the Johnny Gibson's. 2 weeks ago, the Johnny Gibson's.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and LAR.
I'll second the motion.
All right. So second by Grace. Put that up for a voice vote. Favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Maria, sounds like you got everyone. I'll move on to item 3, or call to the audience. If there's anyone here not associated with these cases that are on the agenda or with this board that wants to have a few minutes to address the board, now's your chance. Hearing none, let's move on to number 4. The post. We get a review of this, Maria?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, this is the former Indian trading post in downtown. I can recall, Mr. Steve, if you were part of that review or not. I think the
I
rest
don't
of you.
remember this.
So all of you are new, I think, to this case. But this was reviewed by the DRB and the PRS back in 2019 for modifications to the structure on site, and they were proposing restaurant and bar on the site, and they had different extensive renovations on the exterior, but now there's a new property owner. Nothing happened. The pandemic came. I'm not sure what happened, but the building just stayed there vacant with no changes. But now we have a new property owner, and they're proposing also modifications, not as extensive as before, but the applicant is here. I'm going to let him go through the review, the presentation. But was that yesterday, Kim, that the PRS did a minor review? It was determined to be minor in nature, which means it didn't go through the whole PRS. It just went through the review with one PRS member, and the review was done on site together with the applicant. And I just entered these notes yesterday that we received from the PRS member. I still need to share it with the applicant, but basically the motion from yesterday's minor review says recommended approval as presented, except for the open-ended options. That is, submit drawings for either window or second door on each facade, and either with or without canopies. If applicant decides to change window, door, or canopy decision in the future, then they will need to return to the PRS for review. So that was the motion. It's Rio Nuevo area review for you, and that's all I have, Mr. Chair, unless you have any questions for me.
So that was the historic building review?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I say let's start talking about it and see where we head up.
So Miguel, feel free to share your screen.
Okay, I'll share screen now. Let me introduce myself. I'm Miguel Fuentevilla with Principal at Fours Architecture.
I'm Kim Ballas. I'm one of the senior architects here at Forest.
And the project manager on it. And then we also have Zach Fenton. Zach is the owner and the developer for the project. He is the one that has purchased the project, and we've already begun some things, and I'll explain that here at the start. I'm going to share screen now. Wanted to say thank you, members. I know this is done on your free time. I know I've done these also, so I appreciate your time, both the chair and all the members. Thank you. Let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see it.
Oh, good. So I'll try to keep this. I'll try not to be too verbose as I can be. I know some of you, but so currently, just so you understand, the city, working with the city, we do have a demo permit because we had to do a lot of exploratory. So we do have a demo permit that is approved, and we've been working on that. And the demo permit was done in order to facilitate our work with the National SHPO and the State Historic. Really important decisions that had to be made. I'm going to start on this page. We also have a full shell permit that is approved through all items at the city as far as building and all items except for final HPZ and DRB. That basically the outcome of the HPZ and the DRB is getting those fully approved. Then we can pull our shell permit, and I'll explain to you why that's so important, because we're trying to stabilize the building. And so that's really crucial. We actually have a third permit that is about to be turned in, and that is for the tenant, and I'll explain the tenant in the plan. The owner, and he can speak more about that, does have a tenant already signed for the first floor restaurant, the lounge on the second floor, and for the basement. I think the great news is after 8 months of back and forth and drawings with the State Historic, and I think this is really important to you guys as we show you the drawings, with State Historic and National Federal Historic, National Parks and Services, we have approval. We've had, as you know, I said before, over almost 8 months of back and forth with them. And the design you're going to see today is based on the letter we received Monday night, getting approval from that process, which has been crucial. In that process, they had us go into much more detail on the facade. And the reason I'm showing you this photo, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, is they painstakingly wanted us to try to mimic this era and this facade with this glass. And one of the good things is, I'm going to get to the elevation, is we've been able with the demo process to uncover these items, which is one of the changes. So one of the big changes is really the infill and the glass mullion system and the column system. Not big changes, I'm sorry, very minor modification. Pretty much with historic, everything was a minor modification because the overall design is very much the same, and we've fine-tuned the whole thing. We did have our HPZ PNR walkthrough on site with the HPZ member and the City of Tucson member and all the drawings. And I'm going to walk you through, and it's not that long a list of all the items that were changed through the federal, National Historic and National Parks and Service and SHPO approval process, which we're really fine-tuning the facade. And all that, basically with that tentative approval, we have to obviously run you guys through those items and then supply them the final drawings. These drawings that you're seeing today are a slight tune-up from the Wednesday drawings, or from the drawings that you have now based on the Wednesday meeting. I'm just going to kind of orient you a little bit. I know you guys weren't on this when it was previously approved. Can everybody see the plan now?
Yes.
Per the original design, you know, the facade, obviously, this is a national historically registered and recognized, now going to be recognized building, and has many, many lives. But this is the new plan with no change to the plan that you have right now. The only thing that makes this different is that it has the tenant. This is the actual drawing going into for city permitting for the tenant improvement. The tenant improvement is a restaurant on the ground level. And I won't run you through the interiors, but it's got a bar, maintaining the front entry, and then the kitchen. And then it has two large one fire rated exits, obviously, that are required. And we're retaining all the doors. So what this drawing really shows you in plan is that we're retaining the previously approved paving. So no change to that or material that was approved in the first set. The only item is we have a tree well right here that's open with no tree, that we want to add a tree there that is consistent with the trees that run up and down Scott Street.
The Palo Verdes.
Yeah, they're Palo Verdes right now. Any questions? I'm going to go to the facade and show you the minor modifications from here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on because it's really about these two facades. In the previous design, the
Congress Street.
yeah, on the previous design on Congress Street, there was basically three or four changes or minor modifications that we did. One, the windows were operable. The windows are no longer operable. These windows went back to the previous photo that I'm showing you, based on national, the back and forth for months with national approval. So this is the spacing and the size that they wanted on the windows, and also that the base they wanted on the windows. So these windows are no longer operable in any way. And also the columns, we are lucky enough through the demo process to be able to expose the original cast iron columns. So the facade is the same. You know, no punctures, no changes to the facade. But these are, again, fine-tuned details that we did with the national and with SHPO. And also, we eliminated the more modern glass doors that were frameless with modern hardware, and they wanted us to go back to, you know, a single pane standard that fit the era of the photo that I was showing you. On the columns, which is really the largest change, we had faux
Stucco.
Yeah, stucco columns that were going in front of this facade to mimic these, because the facade has been changed so much that it was pushed out and wasn't in the original plane. So now, going back one drawing, the windows are back to being in the original position, and we have the original columns. We are painstakingly behind the metal, refurbishing and rehabilitating. And so what that's going to look like, which is really quite exciting, and this is part of our demo process. This is the actual now, instead of Mimit, the actual cast iron metal columns that we are providing, or I'm sorry, refurbishing. And when I say we, I mean the GC, and the window spacing. And then this is them uncovered now. The GC has removed multiple layers to get back to them. And we think they're in good enough shape that we can keep them and refurbish them. So this is a detail shot of that elevation. Oh, sorry. Zoom in a little bit again. So the other item of change is, They also really insisted on us keeping the original wood windows. So these are the original wood windows, and the composition of the original wood windows, which the owner and the GC are going to completely refurbish. And those windows mostly are in place now, but they're going to be rehabilitated and refurbished. Let's see what else on the facade. I think, as you can see on this side, which is the Scott facade, the east facade, the same item. There also, we're going back to the original opening that it was originally. Right now, the openings are below this line where my cursor is. We're going back to the original opening and to the original lintel height of the whole facade. And that was in the original approved DRB, but the change here is the spacing of all the window openings and the mullions and the glass. Again, no operable on this side. And the same thing with the windows here. These two openings are staying. The only change now is that this is the other change that in the final drawing that HPZ's local, we're going to change this to a window. With the
existing is a window, and we're going to keep the opening as a window and just replace it so that the frame matches the storefront framework. And in this drawing, we had shown as an option for a door. As at the time, we didn't know who the tenant was and if there would be separate tenants that might need a separate exit.
So the obviously no change to the facade and all the articulation on the facade, or to the really deep cornice, or to the roof line. The other change from the original is the roof, where we have to completely replace the roof structure. We took HPZ up there to see it also on Wednesday. The roof is about to collapse. So we are, it doesn't change the parapet, it doesn't change the look, but we are replacing the whole roof. We are able to keep all the wood joists and the original decking on the ceiling of the first floor and on the inside, and so we're retaining all the joists there in the basement and on the first floor and on the decking. We do have to put a new wood floor that meets the National Historic new guideline that they want us. We're putting in a new wood floor on the first floor and the second floor to mimic the original wood floor. Anything else on this facade?
No, I think, well, no, not on that,
Yeah.
just on the other facades and the
Yeah.
exposed brick.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to the other. So the other item, and I'll show you the shade study, is that the national and federal have approved it without the canopy, and I'm going to show you the shade study. One of the reasons is they painstakingly went back to this facade that you know, was the open facade without a canopy, and never a canopy on the east facade. And so we've come back to that for their approval. On the, sorry, I'm going to zoom in there. On the west facade and on the south facade, I will start with the west facade. One of the reasons this project was originally connected to the Hexagon owner building, and as you know, that building sold, and this building sold separately, so they're no longer the same owners of the two lots. So there was a large opening here that was eliminated, and we're retaining the original brick, and no change to that. And the second item is the paint on the second floor. We are retaining the painted, and the paint is actually in good condition. We went over that with site visits with National Historic, SHPO, and now more recently with HPZ. And so the guideline was just to keep the painted upper facade, which is in good condition, and not try to sandblast the old brick because of how soft it is, to try to get it off. And then the third item was keeping the wood windows. on all four sides, which was integral with SHPO and National Park Services and National Federal Historic. And then the same thing, very similar on the south facade. One of the two of the items here, we're keeping the wood windows and not removing the stucco, right, Kim? We're just patching and repairing.
Yeah, the bottom half of the south facade, it has a variety of layers. There's some stucco, there's some parging, there's some paint, and that's going to be cleaned up. Any brick that needs some retuck pointing repaired, and then it'll be stuck over to match the upper portion. And you'll also notice, if you could zoom out a little.
Yes.
The south facade has that tile cornice, and so all three sides with that cornice would have the white facade, the stucco white facade, so they would kind of wrap around and be more uniform in their look.
Okay. And then I'll next piece. I'll move to the next page. Kind of went over this. I thank you to the city because, again, guys, the demo permit allowed us to uncover a lot of items that we could save, and that was a great find. So, of course, now we've kind of removed a lot of structure from the building that we have to stabilize the building as soon as possible. I'm going to show you this and then go back to the new study. This is the basement tenant. By the way, the tenant is the same on all three floors, but it's three separate concepts. And I thought you guys might be interested in this. I won't spend much time on this, but this is the basement tenant, which is mostly a bar, and also has all the bathrooms for the first floor and the second, for the ground level and the basement. It also has a lot of the backup storage, the cooling, because the floor plates are so small at 3,000. We really couldn't get a restaurant with, a typical restaurant to work on the street level. So the basement is really supporting the street level restaurant and also providing a second concept, thank goodness, that has an open stair that comes into the bar. And then on the upper floor, the second floor, this is a separate concept by the same owner. And I can tell you who the owner is if you guys want to know. I think I'm allowed to say that, and I think Zach doesn't have an issue with that. This is a third concept with it, which is more of a bar lounge and has a little bit of games and a separate concept. And this kind of mimics something that he's done already with his 9 other restaurants that he owns and bars. He has a very unique restaurant and food that he serves, English style. So I think part of the hardship and change for us was when the time changed. One second. When the time changed from on the new mandate from 2 o'clock to 12 o'clock, it significantly changed our shade structure, but also dealing with national and obviously federal and the 8 months of arduous back and forth with them. Our shade right now, with adding the tree, only sits at 28%. And I know it's crucial that, we're trying to get approval to get structure into the building to stabilize it. And our hope was, because based on the federal guidelines that we, in the facade that we're maintaining, that we really want to maintain the new facade based on this shade study, which I do realize is almost half of the required of shade that we're all, and I've done many in the downtown, and I always meet the 50%, and this is one that we're just have a really hard time meeting the 50% based on that. Some financial issues also, and the era of the facade that we're trying to maintain. The second thing is there's a lot of utilities we don't in the ground, and so we've shied away from adding trees in the ground. We know we can add this tree down here, but and the narrowness. So we've shied away from trying to do shade through trees. Obviously, we'll discuss that right now, but this is our latest shade study based on the approval that we got Monday night, Tuesday morning. So in closing for us, I know I've talked a lot and I apologize. I think our goal is now that we have, national federal SHPO letter, and we had a great HPZ minor review for the modifications. We're hoping that you guys can see the changes are fairly minor. I do realize we're asking for a hardship on the shade study, but we're really hoping to get this approved now that we've been through those long processes, so that we can move forward and get obviously the shell permit approved and get the new structure. The new structure, if anyone's interested, is basically a brand new structure within the building. Not as modern as what we've done at the Rialto, but similar to what we did at the Corbett building, where it's all new structure that's going to meet the latest codes. But yes, very expensive, basically to hold up all 3 floors and the walls. And I've spoken a lot, and Zach, I don't know if you want to add anything.
I was just going to say one thing, and sorry, I've been hiding out here. I'm not a morning person, and it's been a long week. I'm getting married tomorrow. So,
Oh, wow.
Miguel, I wanted to thank you for running through all this. The team, Miguel and Kim both have put in a lot of work. I've been involved with the historic side quite a bit. So I would just say it was a long process to get the Park Service and SHPO and City Historic on board. We're really proud of how it all kind of came together. I think it's much more true to the historic character of the building than Bourne's previous submittal was. So I think these tweaks hopefully are all positive. And we're excited to do this project. The tenant that Miguel was kind of alluding to is called Cornish Pasty Co. They're based in Phoenix, but they've got locations in a few different states now. They're in Nevada, Colorado as well. This will be their first Tucson location. I think they're going to be a great addition. They're sort of a handheld chicken pot pie is the way that I've heard it described, but it's a much more modest price point than a lot of the other restaurants downtown. So I think it's going to kind of provide a good balance and hopefully be popular. And so we appreciate you guys' consideration.
I want to add a little bit to him, just so you guys know a little bit more about him, only because we do so many restaurants. He actually has a large menu, not large, he has a more extensive menu. He has a similar concept in downtown Phoenix. And so he does have a lot of other varieties off the Cornish pastry, which is northern, I guess, Britain, or I'm way out of my league talking about that. But other interesting item is he does have a location in Prescott, Flagstaff, and another Arizona city, and we're finally on his list. And he does run a similar concept in downtown Phoenix, 3 stories. That's it for me.
Well, all right. I'm excited to see something happening with this structure. When the Thrifty block was originally taken down, this was going to be an 18-month flip on this building, if I remember correctly. So 18 years later, we're finally getting it. Miguel, you mentioned awnings, but you didn't, is that off the table now, or is that still an option that you're exploring?
Do you want to speak on that, Zach? You want me to?
Yeah, so we've taken the awnings off. That was something that we discussed with Historic. And again, Miguel, if you want to go back to that first picture for reference, this is what we're trying to restore it to here. So we don't have the awnings because they're not there are none in this era. The full facade is kind of in view. So that's what we got approval for from the historic bodies. And I think, I mean, to be honest, the only issue that creates is with the shade. So we're hoping that there's some flexibility there.
Well, what I'm searching for is did they give you a hard no?
City Historic, and Miguel, correct me if I say something not correct. City Historic was fine either way. Park Service preferred no awnings. And we are approved as of Monday. They sent the official approval. We can certainly provide you with that documentation. So we are approved without awnings for our part 2 as of Monday.
So
Can I say something, please? For the awning, the historic review this, there were no drawings or anything provided. It was mentioned, but historic said if at all in the future you choose to provide the awning, then you need to come back for historic review.
yes.
So it was approved as it is without the awnings, but they have the possibility if in the future you still need the awnings, then you need to come back for historic review.
Correct, exactly. We would have to come back at that point and request it. There were a couple.
That was kind of where I was going, was that if you presented both, and they said if you present this without the awnings versus with the awnings, after seeing both, you will get approval. That was the terminology I was looking for. But it seems like SHPO and other regulatory groups have not seen any drawings or any indication that awnings were. It was something mentioned in a meeting as an option.
They saw them both, and they preferred it without the awning. Sorry, Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's right. We definitely did. They were presented with both. I think it was sort of strategic on our part. We didn't know what they were going to like necessarily. So we were trying to, present it as an option. We thought that was kind of a softer way to go about it. But again, we were told that we basically just had to pick a lane.
Or take another lap, right?
Yeah. And we don't want to, we've taken enough laps. We don't want to take any more laps. So
Yeah, Chris, it was, Chris, we started with them, the first submittal in February. One of the reasons was they preferred the less modern look of the canopy, just to be clear.
I mean, personally, I do too. So, almost dropped my phone. So yeah, okay. I just wanted to get clarification on what process you were going with the awnings, because the PRS motion that Maria read made it sound like awnings were part of a presentation, but from what you're discussing now, it may have been early on, but they are not. Right now, they're not being considered, or even they're not even being considered. They would be probably last ditch effort if some along the line said you had to add them.
And I'll add just, this is mostly, I think this is only representative of my personal opinion, so take it with a grain of salt, but the awnings were on there because the original developer, Bourne, was doing the whole block. If you look at what he did at City Park, which is a great, very modern building, they have the same horizontal awnings, and I assume they had wanted to tie that look in with this building, so they had those on there. But as someone who loves history, I do not think those were consistent in any way. So we're obviously, we have the history of Bourne's design, but I think have improved it from what it was, and I think I believe that's the reason, is he wanted to tie to his other building.
Yeah, I don't think the Bourne design's even part of the conversation. I mean, we're starting a whole new conversation. That's like talking about a building down the street. So it's not
Fair
your
enough.
building, it's not this design, right? So I'm going to open up to the rest of the group and see if there's any other talking points or questions or comments we need to go over.
And in full disclosure, we did Monica.
I wanted to, this is kind of a continuation of the shade, talking about the tree and the existing planter. So I was looking at the planter from street view. It's very small. And I'm concerned about the longevity of the tree. It's nice. And so I was wondering if it's possible to expand the planter to actually fill that bump out there and possibly use a different species than Palo Verde, because I'm assuming you're looking at the Desert Museum Palo Verde, and I see there is a desert willow across the street with a full planter or a larger planter.
Yes, yeah, you're correct. I mean, we would definitely try to make it bigger. I think we have a better opportunity to make that larger because it's already an opening without utilities in it. So we would be very enthusiastic. And we on the species, we're not tied to it. We thought you guys may want to keep, even though I realize those get kind of top heavy and can blow over. I got 4 of them at my house. I was thinking you wanted to keep the same kind of, look down the street, but we're not tied to that Palo Verde.
Miguel,
I'm concerned about the longevity of that tree, and that the desert willow might be a little bit tougher and survive better. And I feel like you could expand that planter if you remove those up lights to the curb, to the back of curb there.
And
It's definitely something we felt we wanted to expand on, knowing again that there was one there already, and we don't have a sewer going down it like we did at Corbett sidewalk. At Corbett, we found a 3.5-foot sewer in the sidewalk.
And Mr. Chair, Ms. Anthony, members of the DRB, the tree species is something that the Department of Transportation and Mobility will need to agree on. So Miguel, you will need to email David Marchewka from DTM and get his okay before we can issue a decision notice.
Yes.
Understood.
Yeah, we often ask him that question.
So for just to clarify, so first choice for the group that's on this call is a desert willow. So we're going to request that, and if transportation approves it, we're done with that one.
Is
And
that your property?
Well, there's right
No.
away, so technically no. Sorry.
Is it? Well, I mean, is it even in your frontage, or is it in the federal building frontage? Are you proposing to put a tree in landscape or area that would, if you take the traditional from your property line straight out, is that actually in front of federal? And did they take that tree out for security reasons around that gate? That gate's a high secured zone, right?
That was a good point.
Yeah. Well, the back of, because of the way we're angled, we were hoping that we can talk to the city about putting it back in. You see how we have like a large angled south facade?
I guess what I'm saying is that it might not be a discussion just between you and Dave. It might be a discussion between you, Dave, and a federal agency.
Yes, which, dealing with them takes months.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And I guess then with the concern to tag on to Page's, you wouldn't control irrigation to that location. how can you ensure that that tree is going to actually survive if the, I guess
We
that's part
have
of it.
irrigated on other properties that we've done downtown, down the whole sidewalk. I was thinking we could off of our system, but because it's in right of way, not necessarily if they would allow it.
Yeah, we're not going to solve that challenge right now. Just I don't know how we typically handle that, Maria. It seems like even though they're not meeting shade, we're pulling a part of the shade calc from trees that are off property. Which happens. I mean, it's true. I mean, even if it's not your tree, I don't know if I've ever seen that put on a plan that we're going to add improvements, not just in the right of way straight off the facade, but we're in the right of way off the facade, off of our block too.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that brings me to what I remember from the Hexagon building. I'm gonna mute somebody. So the Hexagon originally had balconies in the back and went through the review process. It got approved. But as it went through the construction document review approval, then the Fed said no. So they needed to come back to, it was an IID project. It had to go through the IID design review committee for another review to remove the balconies per federal regulations. So I imagine, even after talking to David Marhevkan, he may have a very good idea of the feasibility of this planting here based on federal regulations. But if not, I'm sure the feds will say something once, it goes through the development package review process.
And I'd hate to make that tree the thing that we hinge, Maria, on the whole thing. I do want to add that we would like to add the tree, but the tree only adds 3% overall to the 28%. It's not significant.
Correct.
It's very small. I mean, I wouldn't want to hinge an approval on that 3%.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just concerned if you're going to go through the effort of putting a tree in, let's help it survive.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and directly across the street's the Desert Willow, right? Is that what you're saying, Paige?
Yeah. Boop.
I remember drawing that circle. I drew that circle.
Good job.
There's no irrigation to it, if I remember right. We cut the curb or something to get water into that. There's no water to that. What I'd like
forgive
to
my
have the same
ignorance.
conversation about Congress.
Is this the desert willow you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah. They had that as part of the Scott Street improvements north of this. Can we look at actual Congress Street elevation? I want to kind of have this conversation about Congress Street.
You want the photo or the actual drawings, Mr. Chair?
Street view.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, my comment really is if you look at in front of Hexagon, they have trees in the ground. Is there a different utility condition in front of your building versus their building?
One of the things is all those sidewalks, all those were done new. So as part of their development plan. So that was all pulled, researched, and you know what I mean? And then they were able to add the trees. Because all of this groundwork and all of this is fairly new, we don't have, we've just been warned by Bourne that there was a ton of utilities under there.
We do know that there's the sewer line comes off the northwest corner of the building. There's also a grease trap interceptor There's the, you can see there's a fire hydrant there, so there's the water line for that. And also there's underground electrical as well.
Yeah, so we were kind of warned by Bourne, that when they did this is all new paving already done, all new infrastructure that they did not install before because of issues they had.
Yeah, it looks like it'd be hard to
I
get an
get that.
offset from that fire hydrant.
But I guess, Miguel, for giving a presentation in front of a board like this, if you're trying to get relief from providing trees that the building directly adjacent to you provided trees within the right of way in front of your building, I would expect that exhibit to be here. Like, I don't see a whole lot of blue stake markings in here that would negate a tree or two or raised planter. Or you're asking, ultimately what you're going to be doing here in a minute is asking us for relief from one of our primary requirements within the Rio Nuevo district, and you're not providing a whole lot of backup as to why, other than Bourne told you that there's a lot of utilities in this area and that the paving's new. This in real time, this was taken July 2024. So this image that we're currently looking at is pretty accurate. There's some markings in that area, but I'm not exactly sure if they preclude me from adding plant material in this area 100%,
Well, we do have a diagram where we did look at doing adding raised trees, and obviously, in a planter, those don't grow as large, which I think financially we could do with the client. That did bring the percentage higher.
Are you guys open to? Oh,
Are you open to that?
Planters, trees and
we're
planters.
open to any. Yeah, we've done that 100 times. So not 100. That was hyperbole.
So Zach, I'm going to go ahead and share that. Is it okay if I share that with you, Chris?
Yeah, I think what.
So obviously these are in raised planters.
If the awnings is where I was going before, if the awnings is off of your list, then meeting our shade requirement comes down to providing some sort of relief on that sidewalk bump out on the north facade there. So I'd like to see how you've explored.
So
I don't know.
can you see my screen or no?
Like how you retreated
No.
all the way back to doing nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're
even
not seeing my
making an
screen.
effort on that north side. So
Are you seeing the image right now?
yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were. Can you see the shade study?
Mm-hmm.
yes.
So this is the shade study we did with adding 3 trees. That got us a lot closer. Got us up to, without the federal one, 45%. These would be trees with limited canopies, and obviously we'd have to use, we'd have to go over the parallel parking. We need to be able to canopy over that parking area because of the narrow sidewalk. We could actually pull this one in a little bit on Congress. But adding 3 raised planters, we could get it up above 45% is what we were trying to do. But because of the narrowness, and I didn't know if you guys were frowning on the raised planter, and because these trees obviously won't get as big, it has to be the right species. But we could up our shade count based on this.
Chris, you're muted. I'm not sure if you're trying to speak.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any comments or talking points on this one? I'm kind of scrolling around this image.
I think this is a good effort. I think it'd be good to explore if the tree on Congress could be at grade with a larger planter. If you can, it seems like there's enough of an offset from the fire hydrant line. I don't know where that sewer line is, or if that's actually that's to the west.
Yeah, sewer line, I believe, is almost at the very west edge of the property. Water comes in somewhere in the middle, but Miguel, you'd have to address any other concerns, and we might not know until we start opening it up, I guess. But I'll just say, from my perspective, yeah, I'm good with the trees if we can do them.
I have a question. Maybe this is more directed at Paige. Paige, if the three trees were in planters, raised planters, what species is going to be robust or resilient enough to survive those? So they, and then is that on the city's water plan, or does the client have to figure out irrigation to that? And then third, I guess, if they are in planters and there's unlimited growth due to soil bed, what is the realistic, I guess, canopy based on a specific tree like the desert willow? And would that suggest, if it's not as big as shown, could the client add more?
So as far as irrigation is concerned, I'm not sure if that's in the right of way, how that would work. Chris, you're really good at irrigation.
All day trees, but this would all go on city irrigation legally, unless an agreement, there is no city irrigation available, and there can be an agreement made that owner irrigates. I'm not sure what they have in front of Hexagon connected to the city water, or I didn't see any markings for city water going in front of that building when we were looking at that street view for city irrigation. That's usually on the blue stake. But all of this conversation we're having currently is, it's all conversation you need to have with Dave Marhefka. Raised planters along the right of way are a tricky move. There's a lot of other rules that come into play with raised planters along, whether they're built or if they're prefab models, if they're made out of brick and stucco, or if they're made out of, fiberglass and wood or whatever, or concrete planters. Those have certain AASHTO rules and traffic, and within the right of way, they have rules that he needs to follow in that area. But if you are close to 45, this is saying 48% at this shade study. It seems like there's potentially options available for you to make it to 50%, which is our baseline, and I'm feeling like you need to have a conversation with Dave Marhefka.
Yeah. And why, I'm sorry, I don't remember why planters on Scott instead of in ground?
Well, there's, again, we've a few items, we've run into a bunch of utility issues already, on the many projects we've done on Congress. And so
And we have the downspout drainage.
Yeah, and the downspout drainage, and so we've been more successful that if we promise trees, you know, we can definitely do them if they're above grade versus when we've run into issues when we haven't been able to put them in below grade, like we had at Corbin. And I think, you know, part of the issue too was I know with all the work that we've done on Congress that we have to maintain 8-foot clear between obstacles. They want at least an 8-foot wide sidewalk. Obviously, in the future, the owner would love to be able to do a patio too, because that's our big thing. You know, to be able to add a patio, that's what, you know, coming back to you guys in the future off on Congress. You know, that would be an ideal situation, but it was off the table with historic right now. So part of that issue is maintaining that 8-foot and where do we put the tree based on the 8-foot requirement that I know they're going to want on Congress.
In addition, we have the downspouts drain. They're coming down on the west side, sorry, the east side here, and we have sidewalk scuppers out to the street, so they're coming off of that Scott side as well. So we have to be able to drain the roof as well.
Could that be used
Drain
for the
them right
trees?
into a tree planter, maybe?
I feel like you're gonna get more sidewalk if you have a tree in-ground planter with a tree grate. Then a raised planter is going to create more obstacles with the parking meters. It's going to really fill up that sidewalk with planters there. And yeah, the water could water the trees. Potentially.
Rosemary, Grace, do you guys have any comments? There's a lot of architectural input on this building before we totally take all the time talking about trees and shade.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt the shade. I know that's really critical, but I did have some questions about the storefront. I read in the narrative it's aluminum. Could you give some more detail on what that's going to look like? It looked like there was maybe some different planes, some relief, some infill panels going on there.
You go to that color.
Yeah. Can you explain the material based on?
Yeah. Zoom into the Congress Street.
Yeah, I will. Well, I think the detail might help too. So.
Yeah. So on this.
Oh, sorry, we're not seeing
Can
your
you
screen
share
yet.
your screen?
Do you see?
Oh, it dropped. Sorry, it was, and then it dropped. I apologize. When I moved the other one off.
Can you see the exterior elevation?
Oh, that's weird.
Sorry. Can you see the exterior elevation?
Yes.
Okay. So on the Congress Street facade, the SHPO had asked us to narrow the stucco columns that were on the previous approved submittal and to make it more of a continuous storefront look. So we're using an aluminum. It's in the presentation that we originally submitted to you. That's the Quaker windows, which are nationally approved. And so those are an aluminum framed window system. And so the SHPO had wanted us to have it look like that continuous facade. So similar to the existing building, so that we could tie it in with the existing cast iron columns. So all of it has the aluminum windows. The bottom portion is a metal panel that will match the color of the window system. And then we'll infill the structural supports that are on each side of the columns, and cover those with the metal that will be part of the window system, so that it all reads as one continuous storefront system, the same dark bronze color, and tie it in with those existing cast iron columns.
Okay, and then the wood windows above are getting painted kind of with a dark bronze matching color.
Exactly. So there'll be the existing wood windows will be cleaned up, repaired, the glass repaired, and then we would paint them in a color that's compatible with the storefront system on the first floor. All of that, like blue the cornice and all that, that's going to all get painted out. So that blue is going to go away. That's currently on the building.
Cool. And then if you could go to the Scott elevation, and then if we could just look at that door to window change one more time. So the existing, that's going to be at the existing header height. That's a little bit lower than where our storefront break is. Is that right?
Yes, there's just an existing single fixed window. If we look at the existing facade, it's just a simple window that's that we would just replace, and we'd use the same Quaker aluminum window with the same finish, and just put a fixed window in that existing window opening.
And does that, so the current window is maybe, I don't know, 2 feet 30 inches above the ground with that sort of tile wainscot. Would this window match the sort of datum of the infill panels you have here with an infill panel below, or it would be all window?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand.
Is it just going to match this proportions with the base on the bottom?
Okay, but not the height.
No, that right now it's there's no door there. It's a window. So that
Sure.
we would just match the existing opening of the existing window.
So stucco underneath.
Yes.
Yeah, this piece is feeling a bit kind of out of character with the rest of the changes. I don't know if anybody else has input on that.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and I think making it match what's going on with the other windows on the facade would be favorable.
Yeah, we're retaining the original opening, and so I mean, we can match the bottom, just the bottom. You know, obviously it doesn't have a transom, but we could just match the bottom base.
So one of the thing about the large storefront windows is that they're kind of inset from the face of the facade, whereas the existing window is more or less flush with the stucco. So there's a difference in plane that's
Sure.
end up there. So that might look a little odd trying to put a base on it because it's going to stick out from the facade of the stucco. I don't know if you have
I see.
the existing Google of that window.
I can pull it up.
No, I understand what you're saying. So I'm looking at the plan too. And it seems like we do have 2 doors. One goes into the stair and one goes into the restaurant. Or is that's the door we're getting rid of, the one into the restaurant? Looks like there's a banquette in front of it, actually.
Yeah, that's there because it was always a door opening. It was always an opening. So with National and SHPO, we were told to leave it. They were fine with door or window. And then on Wednesday, the HPZ asked us just to make it one or the other. We didn't, it originally had the opening for the door. Obviously the door to the south is the fire exit door, rated corridor. So we didn't want to take away from the building since it was there originally, the flexibility, what if a tenant changed, we wanted to still have the opportunity for an opening off the off the west facade, I'm sorry, the east facade.
Yeah, so when we originally made the submittal, we didn't know if there was going to be a tenant on each floor or, you know, how, if they might need an exit. So we had shown a door in that existing window opening as an option in case we needed a separate door for a separate tenant.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But Shippo was okay with you cutting it down, the opening down to the ground and making a door there?
Yes. Yes, they were, they didn't seem to
Because
have
of
that
previous.
finish.
My other question was regarding the new structure. We can kind of see those steel columns in the plan here, but you had mentioned, and maybe I just misunderstood, keeping the joists. Could you talk about that a little bit?
So we're keeping the existing wood joists on the, that support the first floor and the second floor. And so, but in order to stabilize the masonry structure on the outside and tie it into the diaphragm of the floor system, we're putting in new columns in the basement and on the first floor. And then some beams to add some additional support to those existing wood joists. Also sistering the joist. And this allows us to basically have this type of occupancy of a restaurant with bars, furniture, kitchen equipment. If it was just the existing joist, they could not support the load for this function. So that additional steel not only helps stabilize the masonry walls of the existing shell, but it also adds the additional support needed to occupy as a restaurants and bars.
Cool. Yeah, we don't have the CDs, or at least I don't think they're available yet until your permit gets issued, but I'm really curious about that. That's a lot of work. So I admire you guys for doing it.
A couple items, we had to pull the columns back off the Congress facade, and this went back and forth with National Shippo. On Congress, you can see the columns are pushed way off the facade, so they're not as noticeable. But we had to retain a certain column line before. But every one of those joists is also has to be reinforced. So although we're keeping them, we're having to add a lot of reinforcement, not just to the base structure, but also to the joist system. But retaining them is pretty cool, and being able to retain the wood decking from below, which was something that took a lot to show Shippo and historic was important versus putting a false ceiling in there.
Very cool. I have one other question related to the architectural portion. There's a lot of windows. I think the facade looks great, but I'm just concerned about the heat gain and curious if there'll be any kind of tint to the window to protect from that.
So the glazing will be a low E glazing. Shippo did not want us to have it tinted.
They want it clear.
But it is a double glazed low
E. Yeah.
And it's a energy efficient window. It's actually, my understanding is that the National Park Service helped design this particular window system to have something available for our historic buildings.
Okay, that's good to know. I think that makes the shading component a little more important than it previously was, because that will be a lot of heat gain even with low E.
Yeah, and previously they weren't doing that. And when this was first approved through the.
Can I ask a favor, Miguel or Kim? Can you, there's another document that's part of the mission online, and it's got another historic photo of that east facade. Could you pull that up? The one of the era, it's a brick. I think it's on sheet 45. It's
Oh, it's the.
I'll let you open it.
sorry.
Just a minute, we have like
I can
3
share.
screens here.
Okay, that's the one right there. The photo on the right, that where you guys were discussing the door that's been infilled. So, sorry, the other photo, that right? The other one.
Okay.
Yep.
This, yeah.
Can you zoom into that east facade tighter? Yeah.
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 I was just wondering, through your, so there's this double door. The Union Market is no longer there, but there's, I'm assuming that that window was cut into a door. So I'm just wondering what the infill is and if that proportion could be, I mean, what you guys have maybe uncovered in that window when Grace mentioned the proportion of that window and how you're going to maintain it. I'm just wondering if that's accurate, what you've uncovered in your demo, and if that proportion could be adjusted. 'Cause I think on if you go to the design elevation, it's a little more squat and in line with the head of the door. So I'm just wondering if there's more height above those doors based on that image.
Well, in our walkthrough, I guess part of the issue is that facade, as you can tell, in case it's been studied, changed many times. So the header now, we went over that along with historic with our site review. I mean, the reason they approved this one was there was a version that showed it this way, but I think it was purposely shown. Yeah.
They're looking at the screen.
That height, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that you see right there, that was the, going back and forth with historic versus having one that's floating up higher. This was the one that painstakingly was what they wanted us to match. I mean, we did go back and forth on this multiple times with them.
Okay.
To change that now would be a change to the approval also.
Right.
And I don't know that they would approve it.
Okay.
So so the national was okay with, because it was that was existing, to just replace the existing window with one that was compatible with the storefront on the other openings.
Part of their issue on this facade has been on that same facade on Scott. It's been altered so severely. Also, there's kind of like, as you can see, even in these photos, we got 4 photos with 4 different facades. Is that their priority? I think was perhaps not introducing another opening here. I'll share my screen. I'm going to go back to my screen. Their priority, I think, was in not altering, this opening, raising it kind of like it was on that photo on the far right. I think the priority was in bringing back the 3 higher, openings on the east facade. And because this area has been changed so dramatically in the course of 120 years, I think they didn't want to play with that opening, with the arch, which wasn't of the original era. And so, again, I think they wanted to downplay this and make sure that the prominent features were the focus. That's the feeling I got from them.
Thanks for the explanation. I appreciate that.
So Miguel, the other item that we sometimes focus on with facade renovations is facade mounted lighting. And one of our criterion that we typically look at is whether the building or improvement provides down shielded pedestrian scale lighting and from the building, and doesn't necessarily depend on city street lighting for lighting up the facade and lighting up the pedestrian space around the building? Is there any lighting proposed on this project?
There's the historic street lights right outside of the building along Congress, and there's one along Scott as well, that are being maintained.
So the thought right now was, because we have such large openings, we tend to do, the idea was not to provide any down lights down low on the building. There was an odd LED that we felt inappropriate, and National wanted us to rip. There was an LED up high running along the parapet, and they asked us to remove that. You know, with F&B and with the street lights that we have now, the thought was and with such large openings, is we wanted more, you know, nighttime, because these are concepts that are open till well past midnight. Was wanted more of the glow, you know, coming out of the inside of the building with such large openings. So the thought was not to alter or add any facade low lights, you know, on that refurbished facade.
So this project's depending on city maintained and owned lighting to provide pedestrian lighting in front of the building?
But we're also getting lighting from inside the building based on our openings.
Until 2 a.m.? When the business is closed?
Yes. Sorry.
Is there lighting on Congress? It's not just street. It's not a. I know there's a streetcar power line there, power pole.
Yeah, there's one on the corner, and then there's the historic right in front of our building, the four-lamp historic.
Oh, you got there's that right there. Okay. I couldn't remember if there was one there on that, next to that fire hydrant.
And there's also one on the east of the southeast corner.
Yeah, we have another one right here.
At the back entrance, yeah.
And remember, our openings are now going up to the original lintel, above 15 foot.
Right. So I think what the intent or what they're really looking for within our criteria within the Rio Nuevo is like this corner entry would have some sort of not just lighting from interior, but have some sort of lighting, because it's inset just a touch, right? From those columns, that there would be some sort of lighting to indicate that that's the entrance, and that there would be lighting, some sort of downward facing lighting to brighten up that corner and indicate the door entry. I believe that's the way I read the intent of that provision that we're going to get to.
Yeah, we could add like a downlight, you know, that's just, we could conceal it so it doesn't affect the facade.
Right. I think that's their idea, is to make that corner, because that corner is going to be your dimmest spot, right? It's got some, you know, it's got some ambient lighting from your urban environment, but
yeah,
the intent's to kind of create that little bit of safety and feel of this is the entry. This should be lit a little higher density lighting than blow through your glazing from the interior, right?
Yeah, we use a light. We've used it like at playground at the front entry. We could use a small BK. It's almost like a landscape light. That's a downlight that we could conceal, that wouldn't affect, I think wouldn't affect the federal historic. National
Right,
Historic.
you're dancing a line, right? Where you can add lighting, but then that sends you back on another lap, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly. That's what
there-
I'm trying to do. Exactly.
But there
I
is,
lost a lot of hair in
if
that.
you,
We all lost a lot of hair in that 8 months.
if you, I understand that, and that you've made it this far. We have 15 things we look at, and lighting is in more than one of them. So having lighting or solid, they won't let us put lighting, are the conversations we need to have, or that we're going to end up having is, can you do this? And if you can't, why not? Right. And before coming here today, having an understanding of what our 15, there's actually like 22 things. There's 15, and then there's a couple more that have to do with like parking and the shade study. But
sure.
Those items are, we're going to ask you about them. So I think as you're moving through this, that's why I'm kind of peppering you with a couple leading questions, because if we get to the point where we're going to go through that checklist, we're going to hit on every one of those things. So it's, a lot of the parking and all that stuff we don't deal with because this is downtown and it's not a new build, but a lot of these things we do end up getting stuck on because it's a criteria that we're held to. Like there's getting relief from our requirements is typically challenging. So I wanted to kind of looking through the ones we typically have challenges with, and lighting, the shade study, and sometimes the architectural features. I really dig that the original columns are coming back and not going to be this prison-like armored system that is there currently. It's all an improvement.
And you understand we've done that dance, right? That we had lights, they had us remove them on the surface of the building, and so. But I think
Right.
I know how we can do. We've done it. How we do a down light that's concealed that won't affect them.
Right. So, are there any other conversations with the board so far? I think I've expressed where I'm at right now. Hearing none. Discussion, general. What we've kind of looked at. I think I have some items I'm having challenges with. Grace, Rosemary, Paige, Cade, do we want to run through these individually, or how do you guys feel about actually going through this process right now?
I did have one comment, if you guys are thinking.
We're thinking.
I guess for us, I mean, it's just, I mean, it's crucial. I know that we're pushing for approval because everything kind of hinges on the building and stabilizing the building on there. I mean, even if there's conditions attached, but it's just really, and I know that's our problem, but it's just really important that we get, we're going to be submitting a TI package that's also going to get reviewed. And so I guess for our standpoint, time is of the essence, and just having spent so much time with historic reviews, that we get that structure in there and stabilize the building. So anything that, even if it's with conditions, that if we could get approval so that we can get the shell structure finally approved and going, and get the steel ordered and installed going.
Miguel, I appreciate your the constraints that you're under, but sadly that's not a consideration for us. The timeline and cost aren't necessarily in our 1 through 15 here.
Understood.
Those are, how it is. You've been in front of boards. I wish we could have a study session, but truthfully, I'm leaning towards asking you guys to come back, Miguel. I think you need to have a conversation with David Marhefka and figure out the utilities and landscape, any potential improvements around the front of this building. I'm not, you're asking us for relief to give you approval with relief from one of our primary conditions that we hold every other project in the downtown district to. And I'm not sure I have confidence that every option or potential option to provide pedestrian level shading to the sidewalk area has been exhausted to the point we're needing relief. If I was, basically you're asking us to grant you a variance, you know, and within a variance with the city, you would have to prove that there's no other option, that it wasn't a condition created by the project, right? So I'd love to open this to the board and that where you guys stand.
Well, would it
Anyone
help
have
to
any?
go through the list and see where we stand?
I would. That's what I was asking, if we want to go through the list, or if we want to even just, or if we were at a, I don't know, I'm almost at a point of maybe not even needing to go through the list, but let's do
I think
that.
let's go through the list, and Chris, that number 6 regarding the lighting too, I think is going to come back around. So maybe start from the top, like Paige is saying.
Yeah, I think it'll just
All
help
right.
if we are going to ask them to come back so they can come back and be successful the second review.
And give specific items of which number 1, 2, 5, or 6, or 14 we want them to reinvestigate. Proposed building.
Before you guys do that, can I chime in for a second? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
So we really have to get approval, or we're going to be in a bad position.
That's not a concern of mine, Zach. If you guys needed to get approval by a certain date, then the timeline and getting on schedule and having your plans together is not that's not a concern of this board.
Understood. What I was going to propose then is tell us what you are willing to approve. Let's get it approved, even if it's in conflict with the National Park Service, and then we'll come back at a later date to, there must be a process for requesting a change.
The other, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, if the DRB decides to continue this case, we could also explore, instead of waiting until November 15th for the next DRB meeting, you know, the applicant would have less than a week, and then move that meeting to next Friday, November 8th, to review what the applicant comes up with. Anyway,
I agree, Maria, and we also have the option too of convening a meeting out of order, right? As long as we give 48 hours public notice, Maria.
That's correct.
We could have this meeting next week, right? Even if we give them a determination today and say come back, we could accommodate with depending on schedules and whatnot. We can accommodate an out of sequence meeting, Zach, if that needs to happen.
Okay, that would be appreciated, certainly.
Maria, am I talking out of turn? We've done that in the past.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's correct. We try to assist.
Just we need to be able to get a quorum, right?
Yeah, I just need a quorum.
Let's get through this list, and then we can have that conversation again in a few minutes, Zach and Miguel. We can figure out where we end up.
Okay.
Okay, back to number 1. I feel like we just went through the list, but I only made it to number 1, only halfway through. So proposed buildings for scale of those buildings located in the development zone. We're keeping the building as it is, actually bringing it back to more of a historic character. We're good with this one. Everyone's good.
Mhm.
New
Yes.
construction, be consistent with prevailing setback. This isn't new construction. The setbacks are being observed. I figure we can jump past that one. New construction shall provide scale defining architectural elements on the first 2 floors. Is windows, awnings, porticos. Are we good with the windows and facade? Rosemary and Grace, we're good with that stuff, right? I think they're doing a
Yeah.
great job there. Okay, commercial buildings should provide windows, window displays, minimum of 50% of the building facade. They're actually opening that building up a bit, which is fantastic. I think we're good with that one. I lost my screen here.
Oh,
I'm gonna share again.
Yeah, someone took you over.
Yeah.
all right.
We have mutiny. I don't even know if your facade is more than 50 feet long. It's pretty close. Without architectural relief, you got plenty of architectural relief on this building. 6 is one that I was coming back around to. Building facade design shall include pedestrian scale down shielded, glare controlled exterior building and window lighting. We're in a little bit of conflict with that, whether or not the building provides this downscaled lighting other than what comes through the windows during operational hours. Any other discussion on number 6? I think this is one we're gonna put a note next to.
Yeah, I agree with adding entry lighting as discussed.
Okay, number 7, commercial building doors visible from the street, highlighted. I think it's pretty clear where the door is on this building. It's on the corner, traditional. Okay, modifications of historic buildings, complement overall historic context. I think you're actually bringing a lot more respect to the architectural integrity by taking off some of the, I'd say, ill-informed cladding that was done during the modernist era. So respect for that. I appreciate all that work. The downtown refacading is such a great movement. Where was I? Number 9, buildings shall be designed to shield adjacent buildings and right-of-ways from reflected heat and glare. I mean, it's not a new building, so we got what we got as far as shade or glare. Vehicle parking. Is there any bike parking in this area? Have you guys proposed any bike parking? I didn't see any.
There's, in the original development plan, which at that time it was joined with the city park, there's some bike parking, but it's at the city park building.
This project is not proposing any bike parking?
Not any additive, because our original development plan had bike parking provided by the building next door. Is what she's saying.
Are we still tied to that development plan? You're just changing the components that are within that development plan?
Yeah, we're just changing the use, and we're technically doing a TI shell.
I think there should be bike parking
Yeah, we've added
related
that
to
as
this
a
building.
we've added that as a comment in the past. add a couple loops, find somewhere to add a couple hoops out here would be beneficial to the downtown area in general. But it's not something we hold a project back for, I don't think. So Paige, put an asterisk next to that one. I'd agree. I'm a bike rider, so I'm always looking for places to lock my bike up.
I agree. Bike parking would be great.
Especially
And people
if
like to
I'm
see their
going into an
bike.
establishment that serves beverages. When I walk out, I want to be able to find my bike. Let's see, we're number 11 is where we're at. Adequate shade. Discussion on, there's a follow-up item in the second set of criterion. So number 11 here is going to be something we need to discuss. Colors conform to the overall palette of downtown. There's no real crazy colors on this building. At least you're not. White and anodized bronze are pretty typical downtown. That is the color of the windows, right? It's like an anodized bronze-ish.
Correct.
Yeah, it's like a dark, yes.
Okay. That's what I thought I heard someone mention.
That's correct.
New buildings, excuse me?
That's correct.
Okay. New buildings use materials, patterns, elements relate to traditional context of the area. I think you're doing that in spades with the improvements and bringing those columns back. 24-hour street level activity is encouraged by providing a mixture of retail, office, and residential uses. This one, I think, is the one that I usually tie back up to 6 with the window lighting and 24-hour street level activity. That it's not necessarily just a, the light coming out of your storefront providing that building level facade lighting. It's also a safety component in my opinion. So I usually couple those two together in my head. And then there's a second set of criterion we look at. Oh, we have number 15 still. I always forget the 15. Entries are directly accessed from the sidewalk, which is here because it's an existing building. Vehicle circulation, I think we can skip that whole section. Parking, you're using street level parking. There's actually 2 spots right in front of your place, which depending on who you talk to at the city could be beneficial to you also. Plazas and open space. This is really to encourage public and private investments to function the downtown pedestrian environment. You're not providing any new gross floor area. So I don't think we're held to any public open space plazas for this project. And your view sheds and linkages are maintained in current condition with this. So streetscapes is our big one. So streetscapes must be consistent with the streetscape design policy. Streetscape design priority is given to pedestrians. You're not really impeding anything in the sidewalk, which leads us to shade. This one is 12 noon on June 21, and 50% sidewalks and pedestrian paths need to be shaded. This is the one you're asking for the most relief from is 4B.
Right.
Right.
It's really it was, lighter on the lighting. It's really 4B is really the one that we're
4B
asking
is the one
for.
that, yeah, 4B is the one that typically we, like the other ones, the lighting and, adding some bike parking are ones that we as a board traditionally have felt comfortable adding as conditions to an approval. 4B is one that we've traditionally not. So I want to open discussion up to the board again on next steps on if anyone has opinions on where we stand on shade studies, and we've kind of had a hard line on shade studies the last few years.
Yeah, I would agree from a consistency standpoint and treating all projects equally. What we have done in the past is required a continuance or to see the shade study.
Yeah, if there hasn't been a shade study or that applicant do additional kind of research or design work to meet that shade study, right? To meet the shade or express why they can't.
Yeah, show the conflicts.
I think I've been kind of trying to set up the way I'm talking about this, and that I want you guys to show us why you can't meet the shade study. It is something that we've required other projects in the Rio Nuevo area to do some very, well, I don't know, say, like some, for the context of a project, some kind of odd, like add a tree here or add a planter, or, we've really kind of stuck to our guns on the shade requirement. One, from wanting to not depend on the city to provide shade for our pedestrian areas, but it's shading the hard surfaces around structures is kind of a big deal in the desert Southwest. So I think that's why it was added on here, and it's an important component even beyond the historic and massing components of this list. So that's where my head's at for the rest of the board. I really kind of want to, before we say yes, we approve this even though you're not meeting shade, I kind of want verification that all options have been explored. How does that hit with the rest of you guys?
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think based on what we talked about today, a deeper dive on street trees, whether they're, in tree wells or in planters, we would like to see more of an effort made on that.
And or, is Sunlink not going to let you put one there because they have their stanchion pole there? Our utilities really, I mean, you've had your site blue staked, and this is a known property, so finding out what existing utilities and what proposed utilities are, I think should be an easy diagram to put together. Like, I feel like, yeah, that, and a discussion with City of Tucson, DTM with Dagmar Hefka, to find out what rules or what criterion he would want you to follow and what he would not allow within the right of way in downtown would be beneficial. So, yeah, you guys, what do you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, I honestly think that is very reasonable. I get where you guys are coming from, and for the record, I like shade. I think if it wasn't for this being a existing historic building with all the limitations we have, we wouldn't be having this discussion at all.
You'd be popping some awnings off that thing.
Yeah, we'd be exactly. So, and that's sort of where I'm going with this is, am not as familiar with all the kind of technical, all the various protocols, the process for this here. Again, my goal is just to get approval to keep us moving. It sounds like the canopies, ironically, would solve the shade issue. So my proposal for consideration is, can we throw the canopies back on to get us approved? Obviously, our goal, full transparency, is to get the canopies removed, but can we include that for now to get us approved and be able to continue with the steel and stabilizing the structure, et cetera. And then you guys know we'll be coming back to you with a requested revision to remove the canopies and solve the shade a different way, subject to, whatever, all the different departments that have to chime in on that, and utilities and whatnot. Does that make sense? And is that something you'd consider?
Truthfully, Zach, I can't necessarily answer that question.
Okay. Talk me through your thought process.
Yeah, I think I can't tell you what to design or how to mitigate challenges that we've come up with, or things that or how to meet. We just need to have 4B. We need something in front of us showing that you have 50% of shade on that sidewalk at 12 noon on June 21st.
Miguel, do you have something that shows
Yes,
that?
Yeah,
so pull it up. We have a study with the shade structure.
Maria, are you pulling it up, or I think Maria's beating me to it?
Are
I'm
these
trying
the
to find
CDs
it.
that we're looking at?
Well, I have it, so I can share it.
It's down towards the end, Maria.
Yeah, it's at the end, Maria. If this is the one in your guys' package.
This is a design package that DRB received.
Currently
It's
have.
page 64.
64, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, there's over 100 pages.
So we're at 54% with the canopies.
Yeah.
And you
the
said
tree
the tree that tree that we may not be able to add because it's probably on the federal buildings property is 3%. So if we eliminate that,
we're still over the 50. That's only 3.
So can we? So Chris, can we go with this plan and have this approved today, again, to keep us moving and give us an opportunity to come back, and we realize there's no guarantees, but that's kind of my last ditch effort to get us approved today. I know it's not a consideration of the board, but hopefully, at least on a personal level, you can understand that we're really trying to. We got some pressure on us to make this work.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, let me see if I can understand Zach's proposal. So we leave the design package as it was submitted. We would eliminate. I would be requesting the applicant to eliminate all the wording that said optional, in the design package before we can issue a decision notice, and just leave this as it is, and then at a later time, the applicant, if they would like to pursue removing the awnings from the design package, then definitely that would kick off a revision of the design package that would need to go again through the PRS and the DRB for review.
I don't know how comfortable I feel with this, because you're basically telling me you're putting something in the plans that you're not going to build.
Well,
probably shouldn't have put that on the record. because now we're on the record with that.
Yeah.
We started this presentation that SHPO and
Maria,
historics were.
let me add something from the historic perspective. On our site visit, this was not recommended for approval at all. It was not part of the discussion. It was said that if that's what you want to do, then you need to come back for review. If this is what you are proposing that you want to do, then it will still require you to go back to the historic review process.
Right.
And then secondly, to actually just for me to sit here and you say that you're proposing something that you're not going to do it, you're just doing it for approval to take it out, is counterintuitive.
Michael, I have a question. I understand what you're saying. I thought per our site visit on Wednesday, what Jan was saying that it was okay with or without canopies. We couldn't put the option to do either one.
No, she said, and this was the position. If you want to do the canopy, you need to go back for a review. If you want to change the window into a door, then it needs to go through a review. The door as it is was approved. If you want to change it into a door, you will need to go back to the review. Those were the two things that were said on that review. I'm not against, you can have the review on the 8th or on the 7th when they ask you to come back. That can also be reviewed. I don't have a problem with that. But I will not sit here and say that we're going to accept an approval of something that was not approved on the field. No.
That she was saying that we had to pick one or the other if we show it without the canopy or with the canopy, and that she was okay with either one, but we had to pick. We couldn't.
Right.
Yeah,
I
was at that
understand
meeting
that.
too.
And you said you would do it without a canopy. You said if you want to do it with a canopy in the future, then you need to come back for review.
Correct. Yes.
If we were to remove it, but Michael, when we were sitting there with Jan, sorry guys, we're having this discussion on your time. She said that once we submit the drawing to you with or without the canopy, she said any change we would have to come back. But in the meeting on site, Michael, our understanding was she was okay with the canopy. Obviously, she preferred no canopy, but she said just submit the drawing with what the final decision is based with DRB.
Because you have an option whether to do the canopy or not to do. And you said, I'll just go with this without a canopy. And she said, okay, when you so choose in the future that you want to put a canopy, then let's go back to then bring it back to the review. That was my understanding, and that is my position on that.
Right. I think we're saying the same thing, that we have to pick, either with the canopy or without, and that everybody has to be, in the same agreement with DRB, HBC, and that we have to show the same thing for both. So I think we're trying to say the same thing. So.
Correct. And Maria, as far as process goes, if my memory serves, historic and PRS determinations happen prior to us, correct? So if
I'm sorry.
they want to change to do the canopies, then whatever we say today, if it changes to canopies, you're doing another lap. If you try to
Yes,
bring canopies
absolutely.
in currently.
Yes.
Before permits, right? Correct?
Yeah, so yes. So
So adding shade awnings. Sorry, go ahead, Maria. Sorry, it was delayed.
So, based on the PRS's review and the DRB's review today, I would be asking the applicant to remove from the drawings any optional, right? With or without canopies, with or without, the differences on the door openings. So it would be a final decision, right? So if the final decision for the applicant would be to leave the canopies, that's what we need to show on the plans. And this shade study that I'm showing here on the screen, if that's what the applicant is proposing to the DRB today, the DRB will need to make a recommendation based on what you're seeing on the screen. Based on what you saw in the design package, I would just, after this meeting, would be asking the applicant to remove the options, right? Option 1 or option 2. If at a later time, let's say the applicant says today, okay, let's leave the canopies on, the DRB makes a recommendation on the canopies, and at a later time, if they explore other options for shade and decide they want to pursue the removal of the canopies, yeah, they will need to go back through PRS and DRB.
So I would like to add something if I can before. And I understand what you're saying, Maria. I mean, I would prefer, and I think with Zach's agreement, who's the owner, right? Is if we could continue on the tack where, you know, we can, before we add the canopies back in, you know, can we have that week to meet with DRB? I'm sorry, with you know, with traffic, and meet with David, and go back. You know, obviously, our number one goal is to do the tree option, right? Because we want to try to get it closer to, and I'll share the screen. I mean, we have this study. We know that we can make it work if it works within TDOT in the raised area. I mean, I would prefer to stay on the original track, which is basically, you know, can we make this shade study that's up on your screens, and it's the way that you were working towards, Chris, you know, and work with TDOT basically to see if they're an acceptance of us adding these trees, and can we add these trees, and if we can't, can we add them above grade? I mean, I was thinking that we could actually make this part of the record. And I was hoping that we could put a condition basically saying that, you know, we had to meet this, or we had to come back to the board to get approval. And I would kind of like to walk us all back to stay on track with this concept.
Can we get approval? And sorry, obviously going back to the canopies was not an idea that anyone liked. I was, you know, that was a page in the submittal. It's not like, you know, that was not on the table at all. We had removed it because of historic's input. Going back to the trees, can we get approval if we provide canopies of 50%? And again, if we can't, we're not going to get our, you know, we're going to be dead in the water anyway. So we're going to be in a position where we have to come back and demonstrate that we can't meet it, and you'll have to approve it, or we'll have to meet it. Does that make sense?
So, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, if I can provide an opinion on this, I think from staff's point of view, just to make it a cleaner submittal and for the applicant to explore their options, come back to the DRB and the PRS next week with, the revisions on the shade study based on the findings with DTM.
Hopefully Dave's not on vacation. I'm kind of leaning in that direction, Maria. I'd like to continue this and give you guys a chance to do a little back research and explore a couple of things with other, DTM and with PRS and have another conversation Because I think if we start introducing conditions here, we may be sending you guys on another lap, and I don't want to inadvertently send you on another lap before you get your permits. Do you understand where my condition is? That I don't want to approve something or approve it with a condition that condition, to meet that condition, sends you on another lap with all these people and holds your permit for another month.
And I'm not familiar enough with the process, I guess, but if it was approved with conditions, wouldn't we?
But some of those conditions we are just talking about require additional approvals. Require you to go back. So if we give you a condition that we approve this as long as you put the awnings on, that may trigger another review. It may or may not. I'm not 100% sure. You know what I'm saying? You know my concern.
I do, I guess. Although it's like the trees are so far. I mean, obviously, that's one of the last things that happens. So we have time before we're at that stage. My goal is to get approval so that, I mean, it's a wacky process. I maybe should understand it better, but as a developer, but I don't. So forgive me. My goal is just
we
to
do
get
that on purpose. I
for
think
the structural. Say it again. Sorry,
we make it circular on purpose. It's the city, so
it seems like it sometimes, but
yeah. I'm commiserating, or I'm empathetic to your position.
Appreciate that. So
have
Miguel,
any other?
Sorry.
Yeah,
I
want
to
to
keep
open
the
it.
discussion to the board for a minute, Zach and Miguel, and let's try to work our way out of this. We've been here for 2 hours now, so let's try to work our way out of this and figure out what we want our next step is. We can talk hypotheticals for another hour if we want, but let's. Geez, we even had another thing on here, didn't we? No, or is that this is our only case today? I didn't miss it.
That is it,
okay.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. For some reason, I thought we had another group of people sitting off the side waiting. Kate, Paige, Rosemary, Grace, it's up to us. I want to kind of take a little straw poll. What are you guys' thoughts on where we should go?
Yeah, I feel like it's disingenuous to approve it when we really don't know what's feasible. And I think we do need to have another review. And maybe we could also see what people's availability is for that.
I agree.
Before the next meeting.
I agree. I think that's a good compromise because that, we're meeting within a week to try to help out their schedule, but we do want to see it again. We want to see what they've been able to learn, about the feasibility of doing these street trees. But yeah, not making them wait 2 weeks for that.
And I can also add that we would try to make the historic review happen before your DRB that is coming up. Just so we need to know, and then I'll ask for materials from Miguel and Kim, and I can try to let that the PRS part of the review happen if there's need for.
Michael, if we are exploring the avenue with the added trees, that wouldn't necessarily change what we discussed on site yesterday.
No, it will not.
Wednesday.
That's why I said if necessary.
Sorry.
Those are just landscape stuff that will not need PRS at all.
Okay.
Okay, just wanted to be clear with that. Thanks, Michael.
Grace, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I can make myself available next week so that they can get through this as quickly as possible.
Okay, so Maria, as far as the technical steps here, we're asking for a continuance technically, or are we
That's
asking
up to
for
the,
or are we asking for a non-approval, come back in a week? Can we just do a continuance and have them come back with more materials?
yeah,
Or do we
Mr.
have
Chair,
to?
you have both choices to deny based on whatever findings you want to state. But it's always better to leave the door
But
open for
within
continuance.
a continuance on the second meeting, can they introduce modified application materials?
Oh,
Could
definitely.
they bring? No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
can.
can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and based on what you're asking them to comply with, Mr. Chair.
Right. Right. So I'm the rest of the board. I think that's the direction I'm leaning. What I don't want to do is provide a full denial. I want to give them the opportunity to come back with the information. Is just for record keeping. I don't want to show that denial. I just think we're asking for more information. Does that make sense with everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think continuance is the option we want. And I know we always struggle with this, but yeah, that's what we end up doing is asking them to come back and provide a little more information.
Correct, because what the thing I'm leaning towards continuance versus denial is, Zach, to give you a little on the process. I don't want someone at SHPO or some other regulatory agency to see we denied and then made you come back and have them think that's something. You know what I mean? I want to try to avoid as many obstacles that could come up with this process. So a continuation is we're just having a double long meeting over 2 weeks instead of just one meeting, or instead of saying, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards continuance to help your process a little bit instead of potentially. I can't say whether that would happen or not, but I just having the word denial in your file may.
I agree. We don't want any bad marks on our permanent record. I
Correct.
appreciate that.
That's yeah. Right back to high school. Did you start shaking? Okay, so Maria, as far as continuance, that's a motion from the board, from someone on the board, a second and a vote, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just need more language. To return with what more information?
Correct, right. But it's not, we don't have canned language for that like we do for our purview. Our typical motion, it's kind of an
Correct.
ad hoc motion, right?
Yeah, this is a suggested motion, Mr. Chair, it's not.
Well,
Right,
and real quick,
right.
I mean, before we get there, we also had talked about the entry lighting. Is that something we want to include as a recommendation, or how do you want to address that?
I would think in this, if we're doing a continuance, I would assume we could add that on there, Rosemary, and at least have language in there adjusted applicate or proposal that some lighting could be provided. That would give us no conditions on a potential approval, right?
Right.
And that's our goal, right?
Okay.
Is to have an approval with no conditions.
Yes.
So I'm going to pause for a minute and I don't have a piece of paper with me. I write this down. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of open air this, not a formal motion yet, but this is kind of where I think we would do. We're gonna make a motion for a continuance, date to be determined, so the applicant can be afforded time to investigate addition of street trees on Scott and Congress in order to meet the shade requirement of number 4B. and also to revise or provide down directed glare resistant lighting within the facade. Are those the two items?
And bike parking, at least one rack or two
Yeah,
bikes.
and show a location of potential bike parking pending approval by, DTM and right of way people, because likely it'll be in the right of way. So those three things. Someone want to take, or you guys gonna make me do it? Hearing none, sounds like it's mine.
Yours sounded good.
Okay, let me just make it sound a little more educated. I'm gonna make a motion that we recommend this case for continuance, the date to be determined for the follow-up meeting, depending on schedules and DRB quorum availability. Continuance is being recommended to afford the applicant opportunity to investigate with City of Tucson, Department of Transportation and Mobility, potential addition of street trees along Scott Avenue and Congress Street. And providing minimum one bike rack. And also amending plans to show facade lighting. I think that's it.
We'll second the motion.
Any discussion on the second? Let's vote that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And aye from me. Any opposed? Hearing none. Maria, it sounds like we have a continuance with date and time be determined for follow-up meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB. So if I understood correctly, every member of the DRB here today is available Friday next week?
Yeah.
I am.
Okay, that would be great. So I'll still set up the appointment and everything. Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I see Miguel's hand up.
I think he had that up from before. Well,
Yeah.
if you have any comments, you can chime in, but I'll say thank you on behalf of us. Obviously not the outcome we wanted today, but I do appreciate that you're trying to work with us. So we'll come back in a week with hopefully what you need.
Yeah, I just want to be clear with the trees.
We want you to get there.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear with the trees, but I think Chris's statement was clear, so that's why I backed off the comment. I think you were clear, Chris, when your on your continuance on what we need to do with the trees. So I feel more reassured after hearing how you stated it.
Yep. Let's let Dave determine whether or not you can get those trees in, and then we'll have a discussion next week on what our next steps are.
Thank you, everyone.
I really appreciate everyone's time and your.
Yeah, sorry for the 2-hour meeting. I know how painful
They're all
that.
2 hours. They're all 2 hours, Miguel. Doesn't matter.
Well, could have been worse, but there's only one of us, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any staff announcements, Maria? You
Uh,
find a contractor yet?
Oh,
No, the historic preservation officer position opened up, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB. So if you or somebody else you know is interested, please go to the City of Tucson webpage and you'll see the position open there. And if you can help us spread the word, that would be very much appreciated. And also for the DRB's position that's still open for a contractor, Nathan Skapler's departure's been difficult to fill it in. So if you know of any contractor that may be interested, at least within City of Tucson, if you can please let them know to contact me and I will give them more information about the DRB.
I got a recommendation.
Oh.
Actually from Nate.
Perfect.
But I don't know this person, so I wanted to put it out there to see if anybody knew him, to reach out to him. I do have his phone number. Jim Toffel. I think it's Toffel Construction. They're supposedly Jim lives within the city of Tucson and has been around for a while.
Miss
They're
Anthony, if you don't
well-known
mind.
construction outfit. I don't know him personally.
Yeah, if you don't mind sharing, if you can send me an email sharing his name and contact info.
Sure.
I can reach out to him and do further exploration, but thank you.
Okay.
Or that's Nate just playing a joke on him. You start getting phone calls.
And in terms of announcements, other announcements, just giving you a heads up. There's a project in the Sunshine Mile district that seems to be moving fast. I'm not sure if it's gonna come to you in December or not, but it's called the Stravenue Social. They're on Broadway. If you know the former Buardilla business on the south side of the Sunshine Mile of Broadway, they're coming in with modifications to, I believe, 3 or 4 historic structures for a mix of retail and restaurant uses. Anyway, they've been in contact with SHIP already. They seems like they're moving.
I can't look right now.
Yeah. They're moving fast, so it will come to the DRB for Sunshine Mile District review, probably in the near future. And that's all I have.
Do we want to talk about next week? Would it be possible to move the meeting to 8:30 instead of 7:30? Do you think we can get it done in an hour and start at 8:30?
I don't have any opposition to that.
I have a meeting at 10. But maybe you don't need me.
I'm kind of hoping that this review ends up being, that this follow-up is a much shorter. Actually, I have it at 9 o'clock, but that's not a required meeting.
Oh, did I lose Kay?
He probably closed to go look at his calendar. I thought it was going to kick me out. I do, just the last couple meetings have been long, talking about schedule, Rosemary. Maria, this might be on us and it might be on the applicants of, I don't know, I wonder if there's a way we could set a presentation time, or that they get 8 minutes, or if there's something during the presentation of the drawings, or if that's maybe something I need to be a little more tight on. Is, I don't really care about the bar layout. It's not our purview.
Yeah, Mr.
It's nice
Chair.
information to have. I love talking about that stuff, but it seems like we've been having a couple really long meetings.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, the DRB can request the applicant to limit their presentation to an X number of minutes, and I can also let them know that that would be a DRB request at the time of the meeting.
Okay, I think that's something maybe as a group on our off time here. Let's think about that and think about options or things that you could see to make these meetings a little more efficient. We do have some conversation, and it's more conversational, which I enjoy, and I think we get to solutions that way. But I think there might also be opportunities for us to make these meetings more efficient, so we're not chewing into our professional time as much as we are.
Yeah, I don't mean this to be the opposite of what you said about looking at the floor plans, but would it be possible to get the construction documents? I think that would help to kind of get a fuller picture sometimes than what the applicant's presentation only is telling us. So if we do have specific questions, we could just, dig in right there and then not have to talk about it.
Yeah, or maybe it's a, we do get these materials prior. I know I'm often not as prepared as I should be for these meetings, but maybe that's more something we need to be a little more upfront about. It's like we've reviewed the materials. I just need a highlights from you. We've reviewed the materials. We're going to go right into our review list. Maybe that's an option. So think about that. We're not going to solve anything right here, but yeah, Rosemary, maybe there's some additional materials we can add to the request list as far as the application, and maybe there's something we can do on our end to be walking into them with our questions already in hand, and instead of having to go through all the plans and then go back and look at sheet 4 and then look back at sheet 8, and then we've already done that homework, which is the way it's supposed to happen, I guess. So maybe I talk myself into having to do homework, which I don't like doing.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, in terms of time limitations for the applicant's presentation, I can start adding that in the agenda. So would an average of a maximum of 10-minute presentation? If
I don't
we
know if
just
I'm
see that
comfortable
we have,
adding. I don't know if I'm
okay,
comfortable adding something right now, Maria. Like I just put that out
okay,
there to the group. I kind of want people to think about it and have some time to formulate a response to that. I think that maybe this is something we can add to an agenda. Not this continuous meeting, but maybe our next full meeting.
and again, it depends on the type of project you're reviewing.
Very much.
So going back to the meeting tomorrow, next week. So did I hear everybody okay at 8:30 or still 7:30?
I'm okay with 8:30.
30 is fine.
Paige, you had a 10 o'clock, right? Was that your end requirement? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll set it up for 8:30. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks everyone for your discussion today. I thought this was going to be an easy one. I was really.
You made it so hard.
Well, I think we have to be diligent. I mean,
yeah.
I don't remember if it was Grace or Paige who said it, but we do have to apply the same requirements and standards to each project. And we can't just say, oh well, you're on a time crunch, let us help you out. It's not really fair. They need to comply with the street tree requirements. The shade is a huge piece of this, and it seems to be the one that people are having the most trouble with.
Well, the shade study typically on a project is kind of a blow-off study, it's not, you know what I mean? and we're the board that takes it seriously. So
yeah.
but I do think we need to maybe discuss that our diligence on the shade and what kind of wiggle room we are willing to offer people or offer applicants. This one we're going to have to. I don't think they're going to make it to 50 even with the trees. So they're still going to be asking for some relief. Or if they come back with there's no way to add the trees because X, Y, and Z, is conflicts that aren't in their control. What are we willing to, I don't know if I'm willing to send them back another lap for those awnings. I don't know if awnings make sense on this building, and so come in with some good thoughts for next week on where you stand as what you feel our board needs to hold tight on and what we're willing to give leniency on as far as challenges or site constraints. So I don't think we can discuss it much more here because the applicant's not here, but.
Yeah, I was wondering if we do agree to, like say they can't provide the 50% and we do agree to approve, do we have to do anything beyond just saying we approve it? Is there anything else that they have to do to get out of the 50% shade requirement?
I
think that's more of a question for Maria.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Ms. Anthony, members of the DRB. So if the applicant has demonstrated that there's some physical constraints on the site that prevents them from reaching that 50%, then the DRB has the liberty of recommending approval, notating that, the applicant has provided, X reasons for
Right.
not being able to provide that 50% shade requirement.
Which is kind of why I was laying into Miguel a little bit. He does so many of these. You would think that would have been right on his first slide. We can't do X because of Y, and he didn't provide any of that information. So hopefully that's where they head, and that they can show hardship, not self executed. So if others are saying you can't do it, then you can't do it. And that's, we can't just magically get shade to appear.
Right.
Yeah, members of the board, just like Maria said, with other boards that are run, when they run into hardship, like what you are alluding to, when DRB is making its final recommendation, they should actually state that they are unable to meet it because of XYZ hardship. That gives a
Correct.
liberty now to the director to then be able to justify. So nobody comes in the next day to look at that, your result or your recommendation, and say that, oh, you were able to waive this for this person. Why can you not waive it for me? So
Correct.
that hardship is always shown there. So nobody can turn around tomorrow and come and hold you, say, hey, you have done this for this, you are trying to water down this.
Correct. Because all these meetings and all of our motions and recommendations are public record. So how we word
Yes.
them is important.
Exactly.
Yes.
Awesome. Any other business?
Well, while we're on this topic, I just want to clarify. So my understanding is the design review board makes a recommendation, but they can still gain approval by other departments. They can still gain a permit without our approval. Correct?
That is correct, Ms. Bright, but we make every effort to have a clean material to the PDSD director's desk for her decision. We don't want any red flags anywhere. And we want to be And we want to be respectful of the different boards and commissions and committees of their time also, and their expertise everybody's sharing towards the reviews.
And also take note that the director also has a liberty. When you make the recommendation, the director is not comfortable with that, the director can send the case back to you again for that review.
Which
But
it's happened.
yeah, yeah. So, but we as staff, we're just trying to make sure that everything is smooth so that the director is comfortable with the decision he or she is making. And then, of course, your work, your volunteer work is not gone in vain. So you at least see that all what you said is part of that decision making.
And their cases, not through, the RNA review process. I haven't seen it myself, but through other processes where the PDSD director makes a decision, but then it gets appealed.
Yeah.
So there's also the appeal procedures that the applicant or others have at hand in case they feel it's needed.
Right.
And I also want to thank the board today for not accepting to do a hypothetical this thing that somebody is trying to just say on your face that, oh, can I do this and get an approval and then tomorrow come and take it out? That just doesn't make,
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
anybody should just let that fly.
That's a developer talking.
Yeah.
Can I put a fake wood fence around my pool and then take that down after they get approval for the pool?
Exactly.
I won't say I've never done that.
Oh,
All
you
right,
haven't
good.
seen it.
We ready to get out of here? I'm hoping everyone's nodding their head. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Let's adjourn this meeting at 10:03. Maria, thank you.
Thank you so much again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.